Oh, wait a minute. It's not.
Yes.
Well, welcome to Climate Courage. My name's Andrea Edwards, and today I'm so happy to have a friend with me, uh, Elizabeth. Sorry, I won't call you Liz straight up. Ward Sing, and you're just one of these people that amazes me. So welcome. Really appreciate you coming.
Thank you for having me. I admire you. I've admired you for so long, so it's a
Oh,
pleasure to be a guest on your show.
oh, thanks, darling. So anyway, you're the co-founder of Shark Guardian with your lovely partner. And you're on the front line. Yeah, there we go. Shark Guardian. You're on the front line, educating. I mean, you're doing so much. So let's just to kick it off for those who don't know you. You know the background on the life and times of Liz, because you've had quite an interesting life already.
Yeah.
But also then let's move on to Shark Guardian and why you started it and the work you do and your goals. But let's go back to a little bit more of the beginnings.
Yeah, I mean, Shark Guardian is now 10 years old, and
Wow.
that's pretty incredible. So we created Shark Guardian in 2013. In 2010, well, I got together with my husband, Brendon, in around 2009. We met on Koh Lanta in Thailand when I was doing lots of scuba diving. My background is health and wellness. I'm a physiotherapist, and I ended up in Thailand doing lots of diving. Because I just got fed up with the rat race and wanted to travel the world. So once I met Brendon, this is the very short story, I have to say. He wooed me with all these stories about sharks. We got together. I supported him to do some educational sessions in Bangkok and around the island when we were living in Koh Lanta for a short time, and just realized, there was information we really needed to share. So if you think about 2008, 2009, we saw a massive decline in shark numbers and big fish in a very short period of time. So my husband will share this story from one season, seeing 2 to 3 to 5 leopard sharks, so the beautiful zebra sharks that have a big pattern like a leopard, seeing up to 5 a dive regularly. Suddenly you were lucky to get 1 or 2 a season. Wow. And it was overfishing, and we were seeing more boats out there. And at the same time, the rise of shark fin soup as a fashion status symbol was happening. So we were sharing this education mainly to divers who you think would kind of be aware of what was happening in the oceans and also shark fin soup and the consequences. They didn't know about it. And we were in Indonesia in 2010, running a resort. We started to do little presentations together. This is just something that Brendon created, likes playing around, sharing his experience, studying sharks in South Africa. That's his background. And we just realized we had something really unique, especially as a husband and wife team, to be able to be relatable, not just a guy standing there talking about sharks or just a woman sharing. It was our joint efforts with joint experiences. So we went into schools when we finished that job, and it just it rolled from there. It was just word of mouth. Teachers would suggest to other teachers, get them into your school. And then it became, we got dive centres on board. We created more educational material, books, everything. And it's mainly us, supported by a team of trustees in the UK. And yeah, we're impacting and having the first year, so 2013, we decided to become a charity. So, a bit of better status when we were approaching schools. And we presented to 30,000 people in that first year. Since then, it's hard to track it all because we have others doing things for us. But yeah, that was like the effect. So 10 years on, like now we're getting messages from kids who saw us in that first year and now they're doing marine biology or other things. And, you don't realize you're doing something now, that effect later on. And I know you understand that.
I just got chills. That's fantastic. Yeah. Because you don't always know the impact you're having. So how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we can't do it all. The shark finning industry, stuff that's going on in the ocean, there's lots of little cogs in the big picture. We decided to hone in on the education because we knew with the right education, you make better choices, and going into schools and hearing these little kids saying that they're at weddings and banquets in places in Asia and they're being served shark fin soup because it's a fashion or a status. So we give them the information and they pass it on. They can't change the elders generation who are kind of stuck in this fashion and culture, which is BS, but we can make the next generation change. And this kind of education in places like Hong Kong has been successful because the next generation are choosing shark fin soup alternatives or a more sustainable way. So yeah, that's the big part of it. But we collaborate on research projects, we collaborate on we run our own expeditions, and so we have different arms of different things that we do because we can't do it all ourselves.
Yeah, that's what we need, community coming together, right? All right, so the wider challenge in the world today, obviously COP28 is happening, and we're going to hear all sorts of hopefully positive things, but we're also going to hear a lot of nonsense, and we already have heard a lot of nonsense. The beef industry and the meat industry and the dairy industry are in there with clear talking points that it's all healthy for humanity. And we know petroleum deals will be happening. So anyway, but our oceans this year hit heat extremes that are literally off the chart, and annual peak temperatures are not expected to reach their peak until March or maybe February 2024. So we haven't even seen the worst of it. But there's definitely a lot of anxiety in the scientific community about how high it's going to go and what that impact is going to be, especially on things like corals. In the Northern Hemisphere summer, we saw coral bleaching right across the corals in the Northern Hemisphere. That we've never seen that level of bleaching before. And this obviously does not bode well for the Southern Hemisphere, not just the Great Barrier Reef, but all across the Asia Pacific and the global south. So we've seen mass die-offs of fish and crustaceans, whales, and also even the starfish are at risk of extinction. We've seen extreme hurricanes, tornadoes due to the heat in the ocean, making them worse. The Acapulco one was just startling. So it's definitely been grim tidings for the Big Blue in 2023, which I'm sure for you, Liz, is a heartbreaking thing. But so let's start with the first question. Why are sharks so important for the ocean's health?
Yeah, I'm glad you moved away from that because it can get so overwhelming, and we've gone through those stages. Before we started Shark Guardian officially, I remember having these conversations when we were in North Sulawesi running a resort, and people would be like, how do you keep doing what you're doing when the numbers are so bad and the sharks dying? And these people were sat there eating barracuda or these other, and that wasn't in alignment with us anyway. We soon left. But it was just like, you're missing the picture here with this. So, most people don't understand how important sharks are. So they are the apex predator. So simple food chain, sharks. The only other natural predator for a shark or big shark is a bigger shark or orcas, killer whales. They're up there at the top, and basic science, the top and the bottom are also so important in keeping the balance within those food chains. So people at some point thought, well, if you take sharks away, well, you're going to get more of those bigger fish, aren't you? So brilliant, you can feed the populations or whatever. But it doesn't work like that. There's so many intricate webs of balance. They showed this, with the wolves in America many years ago, and then and the catastrophic effect on the ecosystem. It's the same with sharks. The places where the sharks have been removed, there's this imbalance down to the coral reef because the bigger fish eat the reef fish and they then cannot eat the algae off the coral. So ultimately then the coral starts to die, and this is what's essentially happened with Thailand. Most places that you go snorkel or dive in, people often say, oh, that's the coral bleaching. Actually, it's not. It's because there's been so much overfishing that it just crumbles and you see all just this algae. So, they are massively important for keeping the oceans, firstly, healthy. So they eat the dead, the dying, the weak, and the injured. So you've got the variety, and it's survival of the fittest. That's basic biology, isn't it, to keep things healthy? Then you've got the balance. They are the kings of the ocean, keeping all those ecosystems, all the different parts working well. They eat, if there's like a dead whale that's died of natural causes, it will eat that. So then it can sink to the bottom, the remains and whatever. So you don't have those kind of pollutants floating around. So they have many roles, and they get a bad press, which is why people generally don't want to know about them and don't want to care about them. But without them, given that our planet is, more than 70% water, oceans rely on sharks for keeping them healthy and balanced. This is a very simplistic, obviously, view. And the oxygen we get, again, more than 70% of the oxygen, it's not from the trees and the rainforest, it's the oceans. So it's pretty important we look after oceans and our sharks, and that's what it became. I mean, it became a thing because we saw the declining shark numbers, we saw shark fin soup being consumed, how wasteful it is, how toxic it is, and people were consuming it because of a fashion and because they thought, oh yeah, wicked. And it started with that, but then, it's the whole web. And as we were saying before, there's so many things going on right now. We need people that are working on those different components, but certainly sharks need more attention than they're getting.
Yeah, they sure do. All right. So from the work you're doing, the research you guys are, seeing and carrying out yourselves. So what's your assessment of where we are right now, especially with sharks and other apex predators? I mean, things like tuna really kind of freak me out. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's difficult because to get those actual figures, it is super, super difficult. So, I mean, my answer with this is, we have Maya Bay close to both of us. You're in Phuket, I'm in Krabi in Thailand. They closed it for a couple of years. The populations of black tips and the coral, how it has regenerated. Even during the pandemic, basic coral reefs that you didn't even know existed probably on your local beaches. You were seeing beautiful marine life. Like, things can bounce back. So there is
quickly
hope if things would be put in place. Yeah, they closed Maya Bay for 3 months. And, the shark black tip populations there right now and some of our local islands, they are there, they are healthy, they can be healthy. But the problem is mass tourism isn't being expanded. I think the other point with sharks, there are more organizations trying to do things. So for example, great white sharks, up until 2 or 3 years ago, there wasn't so much really known about them with their migratory patterns. And they thought like sharks that were seen around South Africa and those seen around Australia were different species. With technology, they now can track that migration. So then that becomes really crucial to have these conventions like, the National Convention for Migratory Species. You've got to get your countries involved to protect them. So there's, on one side, there's more research happening, which is so positive, but then you've not always got all the countries involved due to different interests, whether it's oil or fishing. So there's so many challenges still. So I like to still think of it on a positive level, but there's a lot of species that have hit the critically endangered level. There are many within the endangered level, and unfortunately people only tend to wake up when something is on that verge of extinction. So we're very much optimists, so we like to stay in that positive frame, but I don't know. And again, it's overfishing. That is the single biggest threat, because it's overfishing, it's bad fishing practices, and it's just not sustainable for all our ocean life. And that's something that needs to be controlled on a higher level. And we have somebody who does work a little bit underground, and there's going to be a few publications and a few things that kind of unsettle the waters coming out early next year linked with this. And it's research like that it's super important.
So we haven't, I mean, if you think about the impact so far, overfishing, which is absolutely true, and we haven't really even started to face ocean heating as an impact.
No, that's without that. So it's not clear and easy, even without that on the top. And I remember, how many years ago was it when we had the last one? And being in the water, I think I was working in the Similan Islands, and I have to wear layers of wetsuit even in a hot country. And I remember just being like, I am warm, I am hot. And I remember we hardly saw any like manta rays or whale sharks that season. And it's interesting actually that you're saying this. I've had conversations recently with people who track the manta rays here in Thailand, and also with whale sharks. There's been much less over the last couple of years. So whether that's a direct response, species rely on certain temperatures. It's a reason they sometimes give when certain sharks are in different waters, because they have moved. Indonesia, they had like a great white shark in Komodo a couple of years ago. The great white shark, that you get cool waters around Indonesia, that, but not as cool as great white sharks. That's a reflection that things are changing and moving, and how that impacts. So not only sharks and other big fish, marine species, how they can actually live. Think about gestation. They rely on a certain temperature to breed, to breed and repopulate. So I was looking at some studies yesterday to do with that, how it can affect the incubation period. So again, there's these knock-on effects of those temperature rises and the displacement of species, and how that then impacts whether it's a different reef or a different seafood industry. Another example, there was some sharks removed from a certain location in Hawaii some years ago. Because they took the sharks away, the rays there overpopulated, and then they ended up eating the oysters, or I forget. But there's that, and suddenly that seafood industry collapsed, and that was jobs, money, infrastructure for so many, just with the sharks being removed. So it's these things you can't mess with. There's always a knock-on effect somewhere down the line or elsewhere, and that's the concern for sure.
Yeah, I've been tracking fish migrations for quite a while now, and everything's going north or it's going south, and it's like kind of when I read about it, I'm like, it's like those movies of the future where the birds are all flying, and if the humans don't get the message that they need to go in the direction of the birds, they're not going to make it. Those sort of scenes. And I sort of said to my husband, I think we should be paying attention to where the fish are going, because but where they go, they destroy other ecosystems that have existed for millennia, right? So it's not a good thing. But the temperature rise. So in the Amazon, the dolphins. Have you seen the mass die off of the pink dolphins in the Amazon?
I haven't. No, I will after this. Have a look.
Yeah, it's a really sad one. I've got one. I'll be putting another one in the weekend reads on it. But they can cope with up to 38 degrees temperature in the water, and it went up to 40 degrees, and so there was this mass die off. But like you say, it impacts lots and lots of things, like turtles, for example. There's more females born when it's in hot sand than in cooler sand. So if you're only getting female turtles born, well, then you're looking at an extinction event. So I sort of think, I know it's not pleasant for people to sort of hear it, but every extinction, every ecosystem collapse makes it harder for us to be able to pull back, and that's where we are now, where we really are at the, when people say we're out of time, like this is our last chance. And, like you were saying, so during the pandemic here in Phuket, we could snorkel off the beach and see this amazing variety of fish. I was even snorkeling with this huge turtle one day because there were no boats in the water. There were no tourists in the water. And we see a lot of, tourists who don't respect the environment, picking up starfish for selfies underwater and that sort of thing, right? So the respect for the natural world and the amount of people that are coming into these environments, there's no conversation around starting to shrink that down. We need to shrink it all down in every way possible, right?
Yeah, there's so much part of it. There's so much I can say just about sharks and what I've witnessed underwater as well. Over the years, you think people would be becoming more knowledgeable, but unfortunately you've hit on the word of social media and how people just get lost in what they want to share, whereas they could be using that voice for so much good, as we are. You use social media for good, and more people do need to be talking about it. So we've got to hope that these messages get out to this younger generation, because, well, we're saying it needs to happen now, but what our kids are going to have to deal with is scary. It is scary indeed.
And that's why we fight, right? Look, my boys tell me their dreams. They look me in the eye and tell me their dreams, and I sit there and I'm like, I don't know if that dream is possible. I'll never tell them that.
No.
Because I want them to, I want to fight so that they can chase their dreams, so that all children can chase their dreams, you know? Yeah, it's all right. So what are the movements that you're seeing that are linked to sharks, obviously, other than Shark Guardian, that you think that people could really get behind, you know, and get involved in, or even educate themselves? Where would you recommend people go to sort of build their knowledge base?
Yeah, I mean, particular organisations, there's lots out there. I mean, from a movement, something people can do, I think it's the plastic, single-use plastic, stop using plastic, just say no. Just, I think, especially in Asia, I mean, it's worldwide though, isn't it? Like, you know, and there's lots of groups like Trash Hero we have here. There's so many things that you can get involved with. Yes, saying no to your straws and your bags, like that should be basic, just normal instinct now, yet it's not. You know, I see the people in the bars and the restaurants, and when there's 2 straws in a cup in a cocktail, you know, it's like that needs to stop. And you know, England just like did a ban on all the single-use plastics, you know, that with takeaway meals and straws and whatever. Like that should be everywhere, and only by us refusing and just keep saying these things can that stop or make a difference. Like I know you can feel like you're hitting your head a bit against a brick wall, but you know, chuck your bamboo or metal straws in your car or your bag, so you've always got them in there. We're not perfect, you know, we mess up, but if it's, you know, 1 straw out of 10, that's a big difference. So I think that's, you know, that's a big thing. We really like Wild Aid. Like we've done there's Wild Aid Thailand. They've done a lot of campaigns back in the Beijing Olympics. You know, the famous basketballer was part of a big campaign. So organizations like that, it's, you know, it's specific projects, but they are very much aware of what's happening, you know, globally. And then you've just got your big ocean conservation organizations, you know. There's too many to list them all. But I think from an action point of view, I think more than anything, you can get knowledgeable with these, but like we've got Christmas coming up, and you know, I'm already seeing it. I'm glad I'm not in England, where I think everything's been in the shop the last few weeks. I know Phuket, you'll have it more than I have here in Krabi, but just make those better choices. You know, buy from your little local shops. Reuse things. Like I whipped up an advent calendar last night just by using bits and made art and craft, you know, made something cool for the girls rather than going and buying another plastic advent calendar that's just chocolate and commercial focused, you know. It's simple. It doesn't have to be difficult. I think, you know, reusing and secondhand toys and presents and gifts, like again, social media, you can access all that. So I think those are big things, because again, this is all focused really around the trash issue, because I am going off on one and come back to the sharks.
No, that's all right. It's huge.
Because we have the you know, we have 3 plankton feeder sharks, so that means they are ingesting the plastic that you know, that doesn't disappear. You know, microplastics, what is it? We consume a credit card a week of microplastics from our food, from our water, from the environment. Like that's sick. It's scary. So the less we can do to put it into the oceans, the more we can do to do beach cleanups and whatever. You know, if you're on holiday and you see trash on the floor, don't think that there's somebody paid to pick that up. They're probably not. Like pick it up, put it somewhere, lead the example. I think they are the biggest things. And then again, coming back to Christmas, you know, support organizations like ours. Like we have these member packages. So rather than buying gifts, this can be a gift. And, you know, there's other organizations that have, you know, what is it, like sponsor an elephant or sponsor a shark or whatever. Like use those kind of gifts, because organizations like ours rely on funding just to keep our head above the water. No pun intended. But, you know, like make those different choices, because not all organizations have big donors, people supporting them to do what they do. And the ones like us, it's the passion and the drive. We get stuff done because of that, rather than because there's lots of money supporting lots of stuff. One day we will, and we hope it's not too late for that. And the seafood thing, you know, just don't eat as much seafood. We don't ram that down people's throats. I'm a vegan by choice and through health choices, but you know, our oceans are in trouble, and every time you're eating something, like it's a piece of the puzzle. So even if it's just once a week, you have a fish-free day, or you have a fish-free, it's normally dry January, but there's normally a fish-free month. February, it's probably fish-free February. There's a month for everything, isn't there? So, you know, don't wait for those months. Like, just do your own thing, you know, include it into your natural routine. Because I'll give you this little story, and I was thinking about this earlier. We had a scientist, so there's a lady we collaborate with for a project called E-Ocean. So every time we do diving or snorkeling, we enter data into this E-Oceans. It's like just a big global map of the key species, so whales, sharks, turtles, dolphins, seahorses, everything is mapped, but trash as well. And this is, anyone who goes near the water can do this. It's brilliant. And she started it as eShark back when we started in 2013, actually. So it's been awesome to see it grow. It's now an app. And she came here to discuss projects and things with us. And it was before my youngest was born. So over 5 years ago, she was here. She went and bought a fish from our local market because there were some volunteers, cut it up, and she found microplastics in that fish. That's just a randomly selected microplastics. And that was 5 years ago. Like, that doesn't put a bad taste in your mouth. Not trying to scare you, but this is the reality. So, you know.
I'm 100% with you. I've never been a massive seafood fan anyway, but if I have it once a month, that's amazing for me. But I know what chemicals and pollutants are going into the fish. You know, I mean, some of the apex predators are so toxic now, like orcas. The whales in the Faroe Islands that they're slaughtering, they're so toxic now, full of chemicals that, you know, like for me, why would anyone eat seafood now? Anyway, there's a funny cartoon. It's like, oh, can I have a plastic bag for my fish? And the guy behind the counter says, oh, it's already inside. And it's like, I mean, we've really done a huge number. And, you know, one of the other things about the microplastics, which is why it's such an important conversation as well for the ocean, not just because of the waste, is research is basically saying that by 2060, male humans will be sterile because of all the microplastics and the chemicals that are coming into our bodies. It's through the medication we're taking, which is getting flushed out into the environment, and obviously all the microplastics, but it's also impacting all species of animals and their sexual reproduction, you know, their ability to reproduce. So, you know, we could be at the beginning of a mass die-off anyway, just because of that. I mean, there's thousands of chemicals used that are going into our environment, and the vast majority of them, they don't even know the impact that they have on us. And we spray chemicals around our home liberally. We don't even think about it. You know, it's like just white vinegar. That's all you need to clean your house now. You know, bicarbonate of soda. You know, going back to some of them.
8-9 years ago when I had my first daughter, like that was just I learned about it, and you don't need all this fancy stuff. Like we go into hotels now that have been cleaned, and we're just like can't breathe because we're not used to it. Because we're so low tox here, we don't have any of those kind of things. And just think, if it's out there, it's going to end into the waters. That means it's going to get into the food chains for the things you eat, but it's the food chains of sharks and all the other important key species that are keeping the oceans alive. Like, you know, if the chemicals themselves don't harm the coral reefs, you know, this is why if you go in the water, you need to make sure you've got a reef safe sun cream. Like, that should go without saying. And again, that should go without saying that these big companies should not produce any sun cream or products that could harm our reefs. Like, again, you know, if we were the presidents, I wouldn't want those jobs, Andrea, but you know, if we were, there are so many simple steps, and it just shows what it's driven by ultimately. But that's a whole different conversation.
It is, and it's funny. I think we actually first met when I bought some reef safe block from you, right?
Yeah,
Because you
I
were
think
you
that's
had a store where you were selling that. All right, so if I mean you might have already done it, sort of said it now, but if you could change one thing that we are doing in the ocean, what would it be?
I would go with the overfishing, and there's so
Yeah. Oh
many
yeah.
factors.
Yeah.
It has to be the overfishing because it's unsustainable. It is exploitive on so many ways. Not only what they're taking from the ocean, but from the people who are on the fishing boats as
Oh
well.
no, it's
Where
terrible.
these fleets, where they go, and this is the thing, like the shark fin trade. Like people think it's all in China because that's where the biggest consumers of shark fin soup are. But Hong Kong is the hub for it all. But there are many, many other countries around the world who are doing it. And the European countries make up a third of all the shark finning that goes on. And so it's
Wow.
these, fishermen, the boats that go out there and are killing the sharks, and then they export it to Hong Kong, who then distributes it for use in the shark fin soup, if that makes sense. So this is
Yeah.
why we work with airlines, with other conservation organisations to stop the transport of shark fin soup, of shark fins, because then that's reducing the supply, the demand in the chain. So yeah, it's that having an awareness of that. But the fishing methods, it's crazy. It's like like the whole dolphin in a the tuna with the dolphin. How the labeling, it's dolphin safe or whatever. There is no such thing of that, I believe, and even those companies who we trust with regards seafood, those choices, they cannot be trusted. There's the famous movie Seaspiracy. If you've not seen that, go and have a look at that, because the outcomes of that are still ongoing. And this thing about sustainable fishing, all that can be sustainable is, the guy who goes, or the lady who goes out on a little boat, like you see in Indonesia, they catch what they need away from the reef. That's how it used to be done. And there were so many places who were surviving and managing and thriving like that. Yeah. And then the big companies came in. Here's your money. We're going to have to bring our big boats. And they've just devastated these basic fishing villages. It's sad to see. And, so it's fish, sharks, dolphins, the whole shebang. So again, reducing what we consume from a fish point of view, seafood, you are impacting that. You are. It takes a lot of us to make that choice. Yeah. But that's the biggie. It's scary, isn't it, when you see those programs about it? And I think people, again, just act ignorant because they don't want to not eat the fish. Yeah. English there, but you know what I mean? Like it's, if you see it, you cannot unsee the destruction that's happening in our oceans. It's big.
The mega fishing trawlers, that's something I spend a lot of time thinking about. Like, the world needs to do big things right now to solve big problems. Yes. And I think one of the best things we could do right now is to get all of these mega trawlers with their big, huge nets that take so much, get them out of the water. Just get them, and if the billionaire class want to keep doing what they're doing, okay, how about you buy the fishing trawlers out? And then get their boats out of the water, use the boats and the material from the boats to build refugee villages and cities and towns, because we're going to need them. But let's get the big ones out, the local, smaller, family-run, community-run fishing. I watched people here who didn't have jobs for a couple of years. They were growing their own gardens, they were growing herbs, and they were fishing, and they were getting the mussels and oysters from the rocks. So they went back to that really sort of basic survival to survive during that time. But I think we've definitely got to get these guys off the ocean, and I'm not seeing any indication that that's even being thought about. But because we're so close now, it's a Seaspiracy. I think it really highlighted how close we were, and a lot of people have criticised the movie. I don't think they were very good at the statistics that they, just like the vegan one that what's his name did. Do you remember the vegan one that was a few years before?
What's the name of that one? Yeah.
I think they used
sounds similar. It's got a similar name.
Yeah, but they they could have done it because I do so much research. They could have done a better job on the research, and it became a critical part of the movie or documentary that, anyway, but that's beside the point, because what they were actually saying, and they were showing us the fishing yards in Japan where the tuna is, and the tuna is at such a critical level now. So we've got to get these boats out. I'm expecting a similar response to me, but deep sea mining, what are your thoughts? I feel the governments are making the right decisions so far.
Yeah, I mean, just going back, there's also a documentary called The End of the Line. I don't know if you saw that. It was out around the same time. And so the Sharkwater, the Cove, The End of the Line, they're all around kind of 2007, 8, 2006 even. They've been out a long time. And The End of the Line had a lot of that information that was in Seaspiracy, even more, like it was showing like some of the... I'm doing this because they were showing the fishing lines, how long they could wrap around the whole globe, like how long some of them are. And some of the nets are as big as like 12 football fields or something like that. Like, just crazy. Deep sea mining, as I said, I don't know lots about it, but looking into what it actually involves, like, how can you, like, we know more about outer space, don't we, than we know what's underneath our oceans. And the medicines and the things that have been retrieved and solved, or these drugs that have been created for diseases like Alzheimer's and the like. Again, don't quote me on all this, but this is many years ago I've seen this kind of study that's from our corals or substances, plants underneath in the ocean. Yet we haven't explored all our oceans. There are parts that we've never been to, yet you're talking about just ripping all of that apart. Like, one in itself, the effect of those destructive methods. And as we've just said, like a basic knock-on effect of, removing sharks or removing this, or the coral bleaching, the knock-on effect that has onto the different aspects of the ecosystem. You go play with another part of these ecosystems with this deep sea mining. Like, I hate to think and they don't know that, do they? Like, why throw another massive thing into the picture when it's in a mess anyway? Why don't you use your money and energy to fix what's already going on in there? That's my perspective on it anyway.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, it's horrifying, right? The going into something with absolute ignorance, it's just like, all business leaders have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders and employees. Well, how could you possibly be exercising that? If they could get little robots that can go across the seafloor and pick up these little rocks and get them back to the surface without destroying anything, fine. But they're not even talking about that. It's just scraping the bottom, and
it's like just a throw in and guess, isn't it? It's just like throwing your net at the, I don't know, your net in, like we used to do when we were kids, and just see what came out. And it was like teeming with life, like once upon a time, like, what are you going to find now down in there, And again, like you say, send the little robots down, send your submersibles that can cope with these pressures, like learn what else can the depths of the oceans teach us, like combine it with something that's specific. But the intentions and who's going to benefit from this kind of mining, again, it's not in the interest of humanity as a whole, I do not believe.
Yeah. And we're seeing it on land in Indonesia. There's a uncontacted tribe living in isolation, and their forest is being destroyed so that they can have EV batteries. It's like, we're a bit of a.
Okay.
I wonder if we're going to become a smart species. We're supposed to be smart anyway. When it comes to the oceans, what do you think our priorities should be when it comes to our leaders, politicians, business leaders, whoever you think?
Yeah, I think the first is the fishes we've talked about. It has to come from the governments who pull out the big mega ships and the unsustainable fishing methods, or they adopt change the nets. I don't know if you've ever seen, you will have seen them down the beach. I've seen you doing the beach cleanups. There's those ones that are so small, and you try and and pull, and it cuts your fingers. They're so fine, you know, when we go diving, especially at the start of season, if we've had low season, no diving at the start, all the beautiful reefs are covered in these horrible, they're just destructive. So it's just like, okay, sort that part out. So fishing, if I could say fishing as a whole in one of them. The next thing is, you know, with regards from fishing point of view. So last year, well, it went through this year, we had the Finspire Change UK. So we were able, with some other organisations, to get the law changed with regards to the import and export of shark fin into and out of the UK. Like, people didn't realise you could have more shark fins. So you could go to Hong Kong or whatever and then import it in your bag back into the UK and then go and make shark fin soup. You could have more than you could bring like smelly cheese back from France or whatever. Like, the law was quite crazy when we kind of showed it, and it was just like such an outdated law. So that was brilliant to change. Now, a lot of people don't realise that there is still shark finning that is legal. Firstly, that shark finning is legal still in a lot of countries. And when we say shark finning, for those who don't understand, so any sharks, big or small, scary or the little cute little babies or whatever, pull them out of the water, slice the fin off. Shark finning is usually then when the carcass is thrown back into the water, because fins stacked up on a boat take up less space. You can get more of the fin, so it's more money, you know. And there are still fishing boats that get caught with illegal harvesting of fins, because it's illegal in some places, but a lot of places you can still do that. So one of the first steps, is not nice, is this fins attached. So you have to bring the whole body back in. It means then they are killing less sharks. It's more sustainable in a way, because then the whole of the shark is used. You know, there are a lot of fish people that do eat shark steak. You know, people don't realize that shark steak is actually labeled as different seafood or as different fish.
Mahi is one, right? Mahi, is that shark?
Mahi, I don't think it's mahi.
Is that dolphin?
No, that's dolphin. My mind's just gone blank. We just did a thing about it, but like anything, rock salmon is one. Flake is, you know, that's a big one in Australia. There's when it says dogfish, you know, dogfish are a form of shark. So again, dogfish, it's a fish. No. So this mislabeling. But then you have, if the whole shark is being used rather than just the wasteful practice of shark finning, you know, it's the lesser of two evils. Occasionally not to happen. So that's, you know, the actual management of shark quotas, finning, you know, put the pregnant sharks back into the water. Yeah. People think sharks reproduce at the same rate as normal fish because they are classed as, you know, we call them fish. They don't, you know, some species maybe have 2 or 3 babies every few years. Like, so it's this keeping the food chain, the reproduction cycle going so that the populations can keep recovering. So there's little things that can be done with regards to the management. Again, it can never be sustainable, we don't think, but there are ways that could be managed, and better control with fish markets of the endangered species, because I mean, that's a big thing in itself. And when those fins or sharks are transported to other countries, you know, the training, we worked with some organizations in the Emirates in Dubai a few years ago, because the endangered sharks were being mislabeled when they were being sent to Hong Kong. So there's all these strings that could be tightened up with regards how the fishing is happening, the quotas, the species, the types, again, you know, pregnant species or juvenile, you know, put them back in the water. So there's things, but that takes governmental levels and policies, and then it needs the people at the fish markets or in those bits in between, whether it's customs, they need to be managed properly as well. And it's huge, Andrea, isn't it? That's definitely not simplistic. So they're the big things. And then I think it's the track. If we have to say three, it's because we could be working on closing down shark fin restaurants and all this kind of thing. That's not really going to make a big difference. Our education, we're hoping with that, but governmental is your plastic management. Because if you stop making the plastic, then you've not got as many problems in the environment and the ocean that's linking onto the sharks and the other species as well. And again, when we talk about the actual climate change and the effect and the importance of the oceans in trapping that carbon, it's when you look into it, the ocean is just huge in relation to the climate problems that we have. So the ocean should be being preserved. The animals within the ocean that trap the carbon, and then and this is something that gets thrown up about all the whaling that's happened over the years. Whales, big mammals, were trapping within them carbon, and then it's staying in the ocean. So again, and we're talking how many years that? Obviously, we've still got the stuff that happens in the Faroe and other places, but 20, 30 years ago, all that's gone on then. And then you look at the rapid global warming. I know some people will deny that, but balance. It's this balance, nature. Like you said before, get back to your nature, the natural, living from the land, natural stuff, reduce the toxins. All these things.
The whales, so their ability to sort of take on board carbon, and when they die, they drop to the bottom of the ocean and it settles there, which is another reason you don't want to unsettle the bottom of the ocean, because a lot of the carbon is of our, for millennia has been stored there. But a recent one I was reading about was krill, these tiny, tiny little, it's whale food, right? And we're taking out so much from the ocean, and the actual market value of krill for fish oil and how it's being used is tiny by comparison to if we left it in the ocean, because the poo of a krill drops to the bottom of the ocean, and then that's how we get rid of some of the carbon. So this is, there's so many simple things that we just need to be doing. It's nothing simple, but
but we can make it simple. There are simple steps, is what you mean, isn't it? Like, just take those simple steps and make it a habit, that it just becomes a normal part of your life, and it adds up, because all these things that have been going on have added up now, and now it's at that critical point. So if you can just keep doing those little bits with your family, the kids, then we have to stay positive that there's hope, that there's something good coming from it within the bad that we know that's lurking. It's hard to word it, isn't it, Andrea? It's so hard to word it. You do a better job than I do.
No, I'm becoming experienced, right? But it's I have this sort of, so recently Oxfam released its new report saying that 1% of the world's population are responsible for 60% of emissions. And while the report is correct in that the billionaires and the millionaires are excessive in their emissions creation, the thing that everyone keeps missing is that nearly 50% of the world's population is now in the middle class. And middle class people, we eat more meat, we eat more seafood, we eat more, we buy more packaging, food in packages and stuff like that. So the idea that what I do doesn't make a difference, it does make a difference. And, what I really want to get the message out is we need to recruit 1 billion people to come together and to commit to massively reducing our impact and working out how we can be getting back in balance with the earth and the oceans. And we need to clean it up, and we need to bring everybody we know on board so that we can get to half the population of the planet, and all of us, just start to live, like we actually want a future, because some of the stuff that I'm seeing. So you've said a lot of these things, but just to sort of nail it down. So one of the things I always want to do with climate courage, because a lot of the conversation that happens on the environment across the board is very complicated, technical. They're using words and measurements that most people don't understand. So what I've always tried to do is try to make sense of the complicated stuff so I can simplify it so people can understand. And the most important thing is, what can we do about it? That's what everybody always asks me. What can we? So first of all, join the 1 billion movement. Let's recruit 1 billion people and let's get going. But two, the first thing that you said there right up front was single-use plastics are massive. So what are those 3 things? Let's wrap that up again nice and tight.
So with regards single-use plastics or everything?
Any three,
Yeah. Okay. So reducing single-use plastics, reducing your seafood consumption, supporting local businesses, and being more sustainable with it. I think they were the 3 key things that I said. And then along with that, supporting organizations that are doing good, because we need, from our point of view, not only, funds are needed to keep us being able to go into schools and produce materials, all this kind of stuff, but the ripple effect of the education. As I said, people don't realize how important sharks are at the end of the day. Like the apex predator, you get rid of them. There's still the fear from the Jaws movie and all these other rubbish ones that have kind of come from before that I do not watch,
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be an understanding and appreciation for sharks, which rolls then into the appreciation of the ocean, which becomes, Mother Earth as a whole. So the education, we give out books for free anywhere around in the world. And that inspires children to learn more. The parents message and say, why? I didn't have a clue about this, and why it's so important to teach our kids this, and I need to know this. So to get people to care, and all the things that we've touched on, it's about caring. A big part of it. Don't bury your head in the sand. Care. Take those steps to do something. And we bring into the trash and the plastic into these books as well, that just say, stop reducing single-use plastic, go and do a beach cleanup, get involved, small steps. Invite us to your school. We do online sessions as well, because we need the next generation to do what we're doing. We're saying that we can't keep doing all that we're doing. We could do so much more if we had other people working with us, and we would love to have some mini shark guardians that we can train to do this for the ripple effect, that their power. And this is why we would do stuff with schools. The older kids, we teach them a Shark Guardian Ambassador program. So they learn the education, then they go into other schools or pass our education down throughout their school. I always say this, do not underestimate the power of one, just that one person who takes that bit of information that doesn't eat shark fin soup or doesn't go and buy the sustainable. We're not even touched on sustainable fashion, but that just popped into my mind. That's not a whole other thing.
It's all part of it. Yeah, but it is all part of it, right?
Yeah, again, it's choice. And when you said about this middle class, that's the numbers, they're also that's also the population that has choice. You can decide whether you have your cocktail with 2 straws in of a weekend, or you can decide to put your metal straw in your bag so you don't get caught short. It's that's where it becomes simple. Sometimes you in the supermarket, you say, oh, you don't have choice. I take my reusable bags to Macro. They put the prices on the thing. The bags are knackered, but they've been used probably hundreds of times now. You don't need to get it in plastic. If everybody did that, that would make a massive difference. So focus on your environmental impact on single-use plastic, straws, the whole shebang. Reduce your seafood consumption. You want to do that for your body anyway, but also just let's keep it where it should be. Fish are friends, not food at the end of the day. One of the things that really spun me out. So after the pandemic, and we went through a terrible time, tourist destination, big suffering during the pandemic. People lost their jobs, their livelihoods. People really struggled. It was very hard. As an empath, it was very difficult for me to go through it. Just knowing that people were struggling so much. But something that's happened. So, and part of what I learnt in that time is all of these luxury islands out from where we are, with these big 5-6 star resorts on them, there's no waste disposal to those islands. None. So basically whatever goes there and is used there gets dumped there. And if you go out into the forest, go on a hike or a bike ride or something, you'll see the burning pits.
So obviously glass bottles can't burn. The plastic bottles obviously release all sorts of toxins. So, what you're saying about the waste, so one of the things that's really come to the fore is these plastic cups with a plastic lid, a plastic straw, and often they come in a single cup plastic bag. So 4 pieces of plastic in one drink, right? I won't sit in a restaurant if they don't serve me a drink in a glass or in a cup.
Yep.
They've got a sink. They can wash it. But on these islands, on these small islands, they're using these plastic cups.
Even there, they're using the plastic.
Go out and have a look. Seriously, it's everywhere now. And it's like this surge of it. And I'm like, they've got a sink. You can, and it's actually ultimately it's cheaper for you in the long run.
And it's laziness. I say it's laziness. I took my parents who'd just been visiting. We went to this, beautiful spot where you have your photos and everyone's there, the influencers and whatever. And I ordered a shake. And again, can we have it in a glass, please? Yeah, of course you can. Everybody else is there with the plastic. It's like they can do this. And again, this is that choice that you can ask, and you don't always remember, and it comes and you're like, oh my gosh. But again, even if it's 1 out of 10, that's massive. But it's disgraceful, and this is where it's got to come from the government level as well, that they've got to ban that no more plastics in that would make a big difference to Asia. Huge.
Massive. Yeah. But these places where there's no rubbish, so if you use plastic in these places and you don't take it back to the mainland with you, it's going to be dumped in the environment and burnt, and it's going to end up in the ocean, and they break down. There's no possibility of recycling. I mean, the whole single-use plastic bans that we're seeing in Europe, straws, bags, that sort of stuff. When they start banning plastic soft drink bottles and water bottles, then I'll believe that they're actually committed to getting rid of single-use plastic, because they're not doing that. They're not going up against the big plastic polluters on the planet, the Coca-Colas, PepsiCos,
it, isn't it? Yeah.
And the fact
we believe we need to have those plastic bottles of water, and we don't. I mean, that's the mindset shift as well.
But I think, for a lot of people who are really focused on this stuff, the fact that we're not even there, we've gotten worse. We haven't even touched the waste, and I think for a lot of people around the world, they're not seeing it like we see it. The tidal turns of the season that bring in more rubbish. I remember the first time I saw waste on the beach in Phuket was back in 2009. It wasn't that bad. By 2017, it was in the off season for 6 months. The beach was getting trashed, and every year it got more and more and more. Now it's all year round.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that in Krabi as well?
Yeah. Yeah, it's still worse with the monsoons, but no, always, when we choose a location for a trash hero cleanup, it's just like, well, anywhere we go,
just walk out the front door.
yeah. What makes it less in some places is that the resorts go out and sweep in front of their resort, don't they?
Yeah,
that's the only difference. It's still there, and that's still just sometimes buried under some leaves or whatever. That's these higher end hotels, and this is where the choice comes as well. Choose the sustainable ones. There are certain travel sustainability things you can choose. I don't know how. I'm quite skeptical of those. I've never explored them. I have a friend actually who works within the travel industry, and she's trying to recommend the sustainable. She speaks to them directly. And what are you doing? How are you reducing your impact? Toxicity, plastic, the whole shebang. So that is something else that people could do, sustainable travel, sustainable tourism. Unfortunately, when people go on holiday, they don't want to have to think about it. But I think you have to.
No, absolutely. I know quite a lot of the hotel GMs here, and they all are committed to doing what they can, and they do beach cleanups, and there's this amazing amount of work that goes on. But one of the struggles is the infrastructure isn't here for the waste. What we need to do is a global investment in waste infrastructure that's environmentally friendly, and we need to get a handle on it. And it's the mafia owns the waste industry, and it always has. So we need to change that, because countries in this part of the world get blamed for the waste, but countries are shipping to this part of the world. Australia has just started shipping its waste again. Did you know that, after a big failure?
No.
Yeah, so they got these warehouses full of this stretchy plastic, and it was a complete recycling failure, so that it's now it's shipping overseas again. But there is no way, right?
No, it's not going to go anywhere else, is it?
Yeah.
It just piles up in a different country's backyard.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the water brings it to you. So,
Yeah.
you might not be able to see it because it's a microplastic.
You make the choice. You do your thing. You do the little bits. Every little bit helps. I always say this thing. We say it in our presentations. If you think one thing or one person cannot make a difference, just try spending a night in a room with a mosquito. It's a famous Dalai Lama. I've had that before. When there's one mosquito, like, you really can make a difference, and that's what that's our big thing at Shark Guardian. Just take those small steps.
Yeah, everyone does. We need 1 billion people doing it. All right, so final question. So I think we've got a sense that you're a positive person, but you're seeing a lot of impacts on the front line. You would have seen a lot of change in 10 years. So how do you stay positive? Most of the time.
Yeah, my little girls.
Yeah.
I have to, because if I don't, then what chance have they got? And God forbid their kids after that. Like, that's my why and my drive, and I keep coming back to that, even when it's hard, even when you think getting your head against the wall. And I see the fire and the spark in them, and then I see it in schools. When you see, again, sometimes it goes over some heads, and it's the same if you're speaking to somebody, whether you're online, whether you're on out and about, whatever, friends, non-friends, whatever. There's a response sometimes from someone, and you're like, it's hit, it's sat. They're going to do something, and that's it, because you never know. In a crowd, if we've got a room of 300 kids, there might be another Liz and Brendon in there. There might be another Andrea Edwards in there. So that's the drive for my personal kids, but the kids, we have to do better.
Oh, we absolutely do. And I hear a lot of the men sort of sit in the doom basket, and they make a lot of sense to me, what they're saying, the information they're sharing, all that sort of stuff. And anyone who talks differently, they sort of go, "You're kidding yourself," and I'm like, "Can't doomers. I'm listening to what you've got to say. I'm not disagreeing with what you're going to say, but I'm never going to ever stop fighting." And I don't think we actually understand what we're capable of doing if we can come together and give it our best shot. And it's on massive scale, all these countries like America, Australia, Norway. We go into overshoot in the first quarter of the year. So to me, the most obvious thing everyone in those sort of countries that lives that lifestyle does is reduce their impact by 75%, because that's what we need to do, is get out of overshoot, right? We're taking too much from the earth. So let's work out how to do it and believe that we can do it. And, the data's not pretty, but we've got to try. Kevin Anderson, the scientist, he sort of finished one of his big sort of honest speeches. He goes, "We've just got to try." And I agree. We've just got to try. We've got to do it for our kids. And as parents, I think there's more of an obligation on us to be trying harder than anyone else to make sure we've got to give our kids a chance, because isn't that what being a parent is?
Yeah.
What's the point of spending a lot of money on their... No, exactly. If we're spending all this money on their education...
Earth B, maybe there is out there. I mean, these alien visits or whatever that they are proving that are out there, it makes you wonder if there's something being lined up. Is there a oasis out there on another planet that we're going to be given a second chance? I don't think so. But I need stuff out there. I don't think we're going to give a chance because we've messed up. So. Yeah,
but that I mean, we've already trashed space. So we're going to go to another planet that same as Earth and just trash that. I think it's more about learning the lessons that we've greed and power.
We said that nature can bounce back.
Absolutely.
It can. And like you say, very quickly. So take the steps, try, like you said, make the step, small steps. That's what keeps me hopeful, that the message is going to land with people, and they just do those little things. And don't feel scared or embarrassed. If you're out with your friends and you say no to the plastic cup or the straw and nobody else does, this is for you and your future. Like, they do the same, and then next time they will copy or they will follow. Like, if I can get my dad and his you know, 60, 70, 80-year-old swimming people who used to have their cup of coffee after swimming. It was 3 or 4 years ago. And we were just like, why are you having these reusable, you know, why aren't you using reusable cups? Oh, because they give it in these. Oh, well, now they've all got their own and they give it and they have it filled. It like, you know, it seemed hard, but they made a difference and they're still using those. You know, 3 or 4 years later, they are making a difference. And that's what everybody can do. Take your reusable bottles when you go and get your drink. Say no to the little bag.
The bags.
The motorbike bags, you know, it's, drink, bag,
drink. Yeah, so much. God. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be around it when you see it, you can't unsee it.
No.
And it's hard, and because you don't want to make anyone feel ashamed. But I don't know what you know. Because my thing is, how can you not see?
Yeah.
You know, how can you not see? So we are the only species on the planet that has waste. Everything else in nature is recycled, right? We're the only species, and now we've got so much waste. It's going to double by the end of this decade. It's going to triple by 2050. Some people are even saying it's going to be more. I can't even imagine what double the waste on the beach is going to look like compared to what we've already seen. Can you imagine triple? You know, like if you just go to one of those beaches that gets trashed and look at what we're doing. You know, it's shocking. But thank you. This has been such an awesome conversation, and it's gone so much more than just sharks and ocean health. But it is. I mean, I think the point is it's all interlinked. You know, and we all just need to reconnect. I call it nature consciousness. You know, people are talking about human consciousness. We need to rise up, but I actually think we need to redevelop nature consciousness, which is that deep connection with earth and nature, and appreciating that we're part of the cycle of life, not separate and superior to it. And we can all do that, you know, and stop feeling useless. So many people feel useless, and it's just, we just need 1 billion people changing, and talk about what you're doing, talk about what you're changing, share it with humor, with passion. You know, when I do those beach cleanups, my husband's grumpy as hell. We do those rope monsters, right? It's so much hard work. And it's so hot, and he's so grumpy. And I'm like, doing my little videos. And I just want to punch him in the face, because I'm like, come on, we need to make this look pleasurable so other people will want to do it. But really, we do. And he's not really getting the message on that one. But yeah, I mean, we you know, just share it, you know, inspire other people. Every time we do a beach cleanup, people come and join us. And it's usually local Thai people, or they come and put stuff that they pick up off the beach in our bags. So it does inspire. And then the next stage, of course, we need a global agreement on managing this waste.
Yeah.
So that, you know, the sort of infrastructure Singapore's got, we could get the budgets to establish these sort of incinerators that don't release emissions. I know, and I need to double check on that, but and we need to get them established here and in the Philippines and in Vietnam and in Nigeria and across the global south. So all this waste has got somewhere to go, you know, and then be inventive about the solutions that where waste becomes an asset, not waste, right? So
So it's having the people in government that are going to make those decisions, isn't it? Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. So that's the extra choice that we have.
But the only way they're going to make that decision is if we force them to make that decision, if we vote for people who are capable of making that decision. And right now, I don't think politicians in the world believe that we're enough of us are behind that sort of way of thinking. And until we change, they're not going to change. And they're not going to change until businesses change. So we're all in this sort of loop together, right? But I actually think it starts with us. When we start to buy less, travel less, pollute less, you know, when we massively shrink our impact, it's going to have a ripple effect on everything, business, economy, politics, everything. And that's when we're going to start seeing change. So I think the power's in the middle.
Yeah.
And we need to claim it.
That's the hope. Keep doing what you're doing, because that's what we need.
Yeah. Well, we've got to do our bit, right? Wherever you place yourself in this fight. All right, Liz, thank you. Thank you for your work. And thank you for being here and being such a bright and bubbly guest. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, there you go. Bye.